So I'm at the new house and we just came over to bring a few things before the actual move this weekend. And my daughter stepped out of the room for a minute and it was just me in this house, and it just kind of struck me for a minute, and I was like, wow, I had to sit down, kind of just take it all in, because reflecting back on how far God has brought me and my kids is just amazing. It's so amazing, as a matter of fact, that I wasn't planning to do this video. I look a hot mess right now, as you can see. Don't even have any earrings on. Those who know me know I don't usually even walk out of the house without the basics, but it's so important that I think to share this with you all, that I don't even care. I just want to be so real right now. I mean, so real. And just share this story from the bottom of my heart and my soul. About 4 years ago, I had just gotten out of a terrible divorce, and my income had drastically decreased by about 60%. And I found myself struggling to raise my 6 children, 5 of them who were still with me at the time, to raise them as best as possible, for them to not realize or to not feel the difference with the decrease in income. And the reason I share that with you is because when I tell you it was a struggle for me, I don't know that word really does any justice with what we walked through during that time. I was able to keep my job, which was an amazing blessing for sure. But I remember many days and nights crying and praying out to God and crying out to God to provide for me and the kids, to help us figure out how to make it from day to day, where I was going to be able to get the dinner for them on the table. And it's not that we were poor by any means, but the amount of bills and debt that I had, and just maintaining, just even where we were living at the time, which was just a townhouse. It was actually a 3-bedroom townhouse, and for 6 of us in that 3-bedroom townhouse, you can imagine it wasn't there wasn't very much room. A lot of people had it much worse than even I did at that time, so I'm not trying to say that we deserve pity, but what I'm trying to say is that we were struggling, and every day I would show up to work and put a smile on my face and keep it moving. But at lunchtime, I remember many lunchtimes leaving work and go sitting in a parking lot, and again crying out to God, writing in my journal, praying to Him to make a way. My heart was broken. Didn't have much money to rub together. We would pick up coins that we would find on the ground, okay? And at that time, it was at that time that we really learned the meaning, the true meaning of depending on God and what faith was truly all about. We set up a prayer closet, and we would write every one of our prayers down on those little Post-it notes. And it was amazing to watch the prayers coming forth, to watch how God was moving on behalf of those prayer requests. And it's so true. It's so true. His word is so true. He's so faithful. He is so faithful. And when I tell you, it was during that time that doors began to open for me. I began to get new opportunities that I hadn't gotten before. And my income began to grow. My debt was still there, but I had plans to try to knock it out one at a time. And it was like the heaviest thing over my head, to try to get out of debt. It was such a heavy burden, and I didn't know that I could ever lift that weight by myself. And as a result, I was robbing Peter to pay Paul, as they say, just making sure that, our water would stay on and our electricity would stay on, and we would have food on the table, but one bill might be late until the next month, and so forth. And it was like this constant struggle. And as a result of that, my credit, it wasn't horrible, but it definitely wasn't good enough, as far as where it needed to be in order to be approved for simple things. And so those steps were so necessary, though. And, what comes to mind is how God says that if you're faithful in the small things, that he will enlarge your territory and he will bless your steps. He'll order your steps. We didn't have a lot, but I did have a lot of faith. And I just knew that God would come through because I had nowhere else to turn. I had to believe it. I had to believe him and believe his word. And there was a retreat that I was invited to. And it's just amazing how God works and how he will put people in your path. And he will connect you with people that you would have never been connected with otherwise. I had been going to school part-time at Mercer University back then. Actually, I had just graduated, right? It was almost within a few months of the divorce. And before the divorce, I had graduated. And so one of my professors there, her name was Angela Hill, Dr. Angela Hill. And, I just was amazed with her and the gifts that she had. And we connected. And even after I graduated from college, we stayed in contact with one another throughout the years. And we would meet up for lunch every now and then. And she invited me to this retreat. She felt called by God to put a retreat together for 12 women, just from across the United States, all different parts of the United States, California, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, all of these different places. And all of us met in Hilton Head. And we stayed there for the weekend, and it was just a time of refreshing. And it was just such an anointed weekend with these women that I had never met. The only one that I knew was Angela. And lo and behold, the woman that I ended up being roommates with was Tanya Blanchard. And the reason I mention her name is one night we were in the room, we were about to go to sleep, and we were talking. And we were just chatting, getting to know each other better. And she says to me, so tell me about yourself. Tell me about your story. And I started telling her, and I told her, kind of the struggles that I had been going through with just trying to put food on the table and all of the things that I went through after the divorce, and just how it was my dream to be able to have my own home again, and to be able to have a home for me and my kids. And she told me, she said, "Girl, I can have you in a house in a couple months." And I said, "Really?" And I thought in my head, there's no way that would really be able to happen. But then there was this part of me that says, wait a minute, could she really help me with that? When I tell you that was in April, that retreat was in April, in July 1st, I closed on my home. And let me tell you, okay, this was such a blessing for me and for my children at that time. That was actually 4 years ago. And, the home wasn't the most beautiful home in the world. It wasn't brand new. It wasn't like a mansion. It wasn't, it was a humble home, but it was a home that was good for me and my kids. And it was a home that we could live comfortably in. And it was a home that I could afford. And, we would still be able to have food on the table and all of that. It wasn't a dream home for any of us, but God opened the doors for me, literally, for that home. And when I tell you, it was such a blessing. And, little by little, the doors of opportunity would continue to open for me. I think I got maybe 3 new jobs while I was there in those 4 years. I transferred to 3 different roles. Pay increased, debts were getting paid off because I had a plan. And when I tell you I was so focused, Dave Ramsey, my goodness, I would listen to podcasts coming from Swanee all the way to downtown Atlanta every single day. And I was just like such a student soaking up everything that Dave Ramsey was talking about. It drove my kids crazy listening to the theme music for his show every day. But when I tell you, it was truly a life-changing moment for me at that time as well. The reason I say that is because here I am 4 years later. I went from probably 10 debts of things that I owed to right now, I literally only have one debt other than my new home again. One debt, which I've got a plan to pay that off. And I've been working towards that. It's just a big one. It's a big student loan debt, which a lot of us have gotten ourselves into. But when I tell you, every one of those debts at one point, my kids and I had written down on paper, and we had a chart of the things, and we prayed over those debts. And one of the things that we prayed, that God would allow us to be debt free and that there would be no more debt later. And we're still praying on that list. I mean, it's not all the way done yet, but believe me when I tell you, I'm in such a better position than I was before. The beginning of 2020, God allowed me to marry my husband. And it's not always a perfect ride, but when I tell you, it has been such an amazing blessing, what he's done with us and how far he's even brought us. And he's worked on me, and he showed me the things that I need to work on. And he's also not ever left my side. And, you know, my kids, I mean, all of us, it's just so overwhelming. My mind goes in so many different places when I think of all that God has done. He's done so much. And so I know this is kind of a lengthy story. Living through it, you can imagine, has been even more so in many ways. But the reason for this video is because I'm sitting here in this home, and I don't even want to show it to you. I mean, it's not the most gorgeous thing in the world, but that's not why I don't want to show it to you. I don't want to show it because I don't want it to come across as though I'm trying to brag, because that is definitely not my heart at all. My heart is to say, and I hope that I'm expressing myself the way that it really truly feels, is to really just say that it's overwhelming when you sit and you take in and you reflect on all that God has done. All that he has done. He had to move mountains for me to get here to where I am today from where I was just even 4 or 5 years ago. And by the way, when that house sold that I was in initially, let me tell you, I don't know how many single women are out here and might be, you know, might come across this video at some point. But when I tell you, God will open doors for you, and for you men as well, but God will open doors for you that no man can open. And he is so faithful to his word. If you are just willing to put him first and seek him, and you're not going to be perfect. When I tell you, I am not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But I will say one thing, and it's true. He's never left me. He's never left me. I know I'm not perfect. I don't deserve anything that he's given to me, and I know it. And that's why I'm so grateful, because I know I'm not deserving of his blessing and of his goodness, but he continues to prove himself true, where he is not a man that he would lie. He is faithful to his word. And if you lean on him and if you depend on him, he will come through for you. Your steps will be ordered, and he will open doors that no man can open. And he will continue to bless you, and your children will be blessed as well. And as I sit here in this home today that God has blessed us with, it is truly overwhelming when I look around, because it doesn't reflect at all what I've been through. It doesn't reflect at all what my children have been through. It doesn't reflect at all the things and the struggles and the tears and the pain and the heartbreak and all of those things. But God is a restorer. He restores. He restores. He has restored my heart. He's restored, a relationship that I have now with my husband. He has given us a home to call our own. And he's just so good. He's just so good. And I hope this encourages you, because whatever it is that you might be going through, whatever it is, what you see is not your lot. What you see is not all that God has for you. He has a plan and a purpose, and if you will just lean on him, he will open the doors that need to be opened. Just lean on him and be thankful for every door that closes that's not for you. Thank him for those doors too. Because when he opens the door for you that needs to be opened for you, that's meant for you to have and to keep, it's truly going to blow your mind. So be encouraged and be blessed.